All right, game makers. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to try to pretty much mimic or imitate the bomb spawning that we had in class, where we have a bomb that spawns to a new location and is snapped to a 64 by 64 grid. It's a little more complicated in Godot, but certainly not impossible. Now, I will say for my game, if I was going to build it, I would want something a little more like this for my bomb, where I have an object that bobs. You can see I've added a few more rigid bodies for atmosphere in my game, but I would probably go for something more like this, and I wouldn't necessarily worry myself about having a bomb in its own spot. But I do want to show you how to do that in case that is something that you want to imitate and keep as close to what we're doing with Game Maker in class as possible. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is create a scene for my bomb. And so I'm going to create a new scene. It's not going to interact with any other objects, so I'm not going to use a physics body. I am going to use an area 2D because I do want to be able to detect when something happens, but I don't want it to interact with my other physics bodies like my fish or my rigid bodies in any way. So I'm going to add a sprite, and I'm going to load just a simple bomb sprite from my PNGs, and this one looks good. Bomb, no animation, and you can see it is a little bit blurry. If I don't want that, I can go and find my asset in my PNGs and re-import it. In fact, you can do multiple. So let's say I had a bunch of sprites that I wanted to do at once. I can hold down Shift, select a whole bunch of sprites, come up here to import. Say I want those to be 2D pixel and re-import several at once. So you don't have to do one at a time. You can do multiple. So back to my scene, my bomb, I do want to be able to detect when it's clicked, so I will need a collision shape. And I'm going to choose a circle. So new circle. And I might have to finagle, maybe move the center of my collision shape, and then go back to select mode and play around with it until I have the collision box that I want. So I have a bomb. I'm not going to do any of the coding for my bomb. I'm simply going to have it as a scene that can be instanced. So I'm going to save scene as and bomb. Later, I do want to show you how to use particles to create like a sense of sparks and stuff coming off of this. Wouldn't make sense for my underwater scene because sparks obviously wouldn't really work under the water. But if you're, again, trying to make a game as close to what the kids are making in class with Game Maker, this will work. So back to my game, and I'm going to actually use the Godot equivalent of an alarm, and that's using a timer. So as a child of game, I'm going to add a timer. Now there's several differences between a timer and an alarm. In Game Maker, a timer uses the amount of steps or frames per second. Godot is much simpler. It just simply asks you to give it in real seconds. So every second, I want this timer to go off. So I'm going to go, I don't want it to be one shot. I want it to continue to go. I do want it to auto start, and I want it to trigger every second. I need to connect the timeout with my game code. And you can see I can't do that right now. It's not allowing me to select my game. And the reason that's happening is because my game doesn't have a script yet. As soon as I add a script to my game, even if it's empty, you can see that I have done a little work in here for some practice. So pretend you didn't see that. And now I have a script that I can connect my timer to. So timeout connects to my game. And now when my timer goes off, something will happen. And what I want to have happen is I want to instance a bomb in. In order to do this, you first have to create a reference to your bomb scene. So onReady var bomb equals preload. And this right here was done for testing purposes when I was having some trouble with an animation player. So I don't need that. And then I can find my bomb scene down here and type it in, or I can find my bomb scene. And so make sure it's a TSCN. Those are your scenes. Right click, copy path, and I'm going to put that right in there. I think, paste. I guess I did not do it correctly, so copy path and paste. Now your scene does have to be a string, so it has to be in quotes. And so now we're ready to instance in some bombs. So when we do, we're going to say when the timer goes out, new bomb equals a bomb instance. Now the positioning is where things are going to get a little bit messy. And so there's a lot of explaining that I have to do that probably is going to make this video a little bit longer than I'd like. But when we take a look at our room is being divided up by 64 pixel blocks. Now I don't want to generate a bomb inside of my wall. So for that reason, I don't want to make, I don't want to, I got to be careful with my math because I don't want it to generate inside the wall. So I don't want it to be at a position less than 64, but I also don't want it to generate or be placed in the walls across the room. So for that, I have to be a little bit crafty with how I do my bomb placement. So in order to sort of establish my possible positions, then I need to create a few variables up here. So I'm going to say room size, and then in the ready, when the room is created and things are ready to go, I'm going to say room size equals get viewport rect size. And this is going to get the X and the Y, or a vector 2, of the size of my room. And then I'm going to say that I want the possible, so I got to create two more possible X positions and possible Y position. And I can never spell position right. So almost always I get a game crashing bug that wasn't a variable that was established. So now that I know my room size, I can say that my possible X positions equals the room size dot X divided by 64. So it's going to take the entire width of my room and it's going to then divide it up horizontally into 64. And I need to do the same for my Y positions. So I'm going to say possible Y position, and you can see I must have, oh, it shows up because I declared it as a variable up here, equals room size dot Y divided by 64. Now, I don't want it, again, I got to be careful because I don't want my bombs to be generated in the wall. So I actually am going to add one so that later on you'll see, actually, you know what, maybe I'll let it be screwed up so you can see why I'm doing this. So now that I have my possible positions on the X and the Y, I'm going to say that my new bomb position dot X is going to equal a whole number or a random integer with the total possible outcomes of the possible X positions. So it's going to, what is the math on this? So it's, and in this case, I don't remember what I set my room size to, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So it's going to choose a random position, a random whole number. So 64 divided by 16, or yeah, my total room size divided by 64 is going to be 16. So it's going to give me 16 possible outcomes here. Remember though, 0 is a possibility when you do a random integer. So I'm going to, let's see, get viewport rect. Oh, I got to put this because it stores a value. So it's going to find a new position, and then I got to times that by 64. So whatever whole number this gets, based on my whole room width divided by 64, so it's now divided up into 64 pixel chunks it is going to times whatever this number is by 64. Now, again, it's important to remember that this potentially could be a 0, and that's going to lead to some issues. So new bomb position dot y is going to do the same thing using the possible y positions times 64. And then I'm going to just simply add the child new bomb. So let's see what's going to happen. So every second a new bomb should spawn in, but there's a few bugs. Number one, a bomb could spawn in on top of one another, and I do want to avoid that eventually. And I'm going to get some bombs that are spawning in my wall. So let's see what that all looks like. Because 0 times 64 is 0, that means some bombs can be a problem. Okay, so right now it's complaining because it feels like this isn't necessarily going to be a integer. So I'm going to just go up here and say that this has to be an integer. It should be it should be a whole number, but perhaps it automatically adds some numbers to the decimal. But this will get rid of that error anyways by saying this outcome must be the closest integer. And so that should get rid of that complaint. So let's see what happens. So you can see I do get some bombs. Unfortunately, they are spawning in the wall, but they also seem not to be kind of on the grid. So I do need to figure out what's going on there, but I am getting some bombs. So I'm part of the way there. So let me pause the video and find out why we're not necessarily falling along the grid. Chances are, I know what it is. I don't even have to pause the video because I've made this mistake 100 times before in that although the origin of my bomb is at 0, 0, the sprite is centered on that origin, and that's not what I want. So I actually have to go to my sprite and change, say, not be centered. And I've got to do the same for my collision shape. So I'm going to grab that and drag my collision shape down. So the position, the parent, or the area 2D, the parent of the bomb is on the 0, 0. This is the same as if in Game Maker you said not to center your sprite. That's basically what we did here. I'm going to make my children not selectable, and now I'm going to run my game again, and we should see that our bomb is at least landing on the grid. You can see it's lined up perfectly with that wall tile, so that's working. But I'm having some objects show up in my walls, and there is some tricky math that you can use to solve that. Let's see if I get so you can see 0 times 64 would be 0, and that does create the possibility of it landing here, and I'm also getting some over here. So to do that, I'm going to just use some tricky math and go and say that I don't want 0 to be an option, so I'm going to say that it has to be at least 1. So 1 plus these will mean that 0 times 64 can't take place. That's not right. Let me think about how I want to do this. So this actually, we can add it here. So I'm going to put parentheses around this. So I want anything that happened in here to be times 64. And I'm going to say 1 plus, so that even if it gives me a 0, then it'll always at least be 1 times 64, which should not allow bombs to now spawn into the left wall or the top wall. That still won't fix the bottom. And in fact, now that I've added one, there's a chance that not only can a bomb spawn down here, but a bomb could spawn outside of the extents of the wall. So to fix that, then I just simply need to come up here and say that we're going to actually take 2 away from this. So 2 positions are going to be removed from this. And because we're adding 1 here, by taking 2 away, that's going to eliminate the times zoom's getting in my way. That's going to be eliminate the times that a bomb can be spawned here or out here, because we're taking 2 away, and we're making sure that this is the last position on the X it can spawn in. This is the last position on the Y it can spawn in. So let's see if that fixes that. So now we should get a bomb in our room every single time and not spawned in the upper and left part of the wall and not spawned on the right and the bottom. So that keeps our bomb in the room, but it doesn't help us solve the problem of bombs that might potentially spawn on one another. So to do that, I'm going to use an array, and every time a bomb is spawned, I'm going to put the position of that bomb in the array, and every time before we decide where exactly to put that bomb, we're going to check the array to see if that value already exists. Now, this is a little more complex than I know in GameMaker, but it works great. So I'm going to create, so bomb pause is going to be an empty array. And if you don't remember, an array is a list of variables. It's like a dictionary of variables. And every time we spawn a bomb, we're going to put the position of that bomb in our array. So bomb pause, append means add to our array, new bomb position. So, so you can see what that looks like. We're going to print it. So we're going to print bomb pause. So you can see every time it adds a new bomb, it will down here in the output is going to put that new position into the array. So let me move this over, and you can see, and actually I'll let it run for a second and then I'll close it so you can see what's going on. So each time a bomb is spawned, it's taking the position of that bomb and adding it to our array. So you'll notice that all of these are in vector 2s. The first thing is its position X. The next thing is its position on the Y. And so it's keeping a list of all of the places where we've put bombs. Now, we don't want to put bombs in a place where if that position already exists. And so what we can do is we can actually look for this array into this array and find out if that position exists. Now, this is a lot of information, and I think I'm probably going to end this video here. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can use this array to check to see if that position exists already. And then if it does, look for a new place. And then that's going to be really familiar and look very similar to something that we've done in GameMaker. So you can see that we've divided our room up into 64 pixel chunks. We've used a little math to make sure that our bomb stays in our room and not generate into our boundaries or our wall by simply making sure that 0 times 64 isn't an option, and then making sure that we're not spawning on the extreme end of our room by taking 1 away would work, except for we added 1 to keep it from this one. So that meant we could get bombs out here. So we actually took 2 away so that our bomb would stay inside. So lots of information. I'm going to divide this video up into 2. We also have a list that's keeping track of every position that we placed a bomb. And in my next video, which will probably be much shorter, we'll look at how to use this list to prevent bombs from overlapping. All right. Woo! Lots of stuff, but it will all help kind of get the same result as we did in class, which admittedly is a little bit easier in GameMaker. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.